walked right in front of Father, who could have looked at her. And then she started to totter. And I thought, oh no, she's going to fall. So I grabbed her arm
Friday's
and
one of the most difficult days of my year.
Rescued.
I did.
I come from a
That's what I
blended
thought.
family, so I both have no meat on Friday and we fast at sundown.
Oh, right.
It's tough for me.
Load up on the fish for lunch. I was at a client. So I stay for lunch. She goes, yeah, we gotta find some place that sells fish. Okay.
But not the
Yeah, it's a further discount.
I mean, it was really abundant.
I do Knights of Columbus every Friday during lunch.
Yeah.
Oh, do you?
No, I appreciate it.
Very, very good.
Yeah, all you can eat
I
for
went
what,
to
11?
$13 now.
I went to get my dry cleaning and I saw the sign up.
No.
Very, very good.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
I've
Bill
been to-
Fanouken has
It's all
emailed me
volunteers.
his sentiments on this issue. Can I read
Yeah,
that?
I'm a degree.
Sure. Knowing that he can't vote on it, but.
Correct.
It was very, very good.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Do we have a meeting after this too? Do we have a meeting after
The 8 o'clock meeting?
this? Yeah, the 8 o'clock, we'll be back in the session back there in the conference room for another hour after.
So what 8 o'clock meeting?
Yeah.
Be free to tell you.
Alderman
didn't
Fagan
get
is
that memo.
one crazy man.
Good evening, everyone. This is a special meeting of the DeKalb City Council, March 30, 2018. Our city clerk, Sue Herman, is unable to be with us. In her stead, Deputy City Clerk Ruth Scott is serving us. And Ruth, if you would call the roll, please.
Jacobson,
Here.
Fanouken, Markwart,
Here.
Fagan,
Here.
Noriko,
Here.
Verbic,
Here.
Favor, Smith,
Here.
6 present.
We have one resolution on tonight's committee, special city council meeting. And prior to that, I would ask any visitors, I see we only have one visitor so far, hi Lynn, in the audience. And if Lynn would like to speak to this, if you'd fill out a form, you can give that to Ruth. Our resolution is 2018-042, authorizing the purchase of public safety radios. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Prior to voting on this, I'd like to ask Molly Talkington, our finance director, to address this issue.
Good evening. So the city was made aware of an opportunity to purchase radios at a deeply discounted price. We were made aware of it this Wednesday, so we took action to work with the company and see if the radios would work for the city, with the caveat that the vendor had the radios available at the lower price if we agreed to purchase by tomorrow, the end of their fiscal year, March 31st. So we had already budgeted in the FY18 budget for purchase of public safety radios. We had $100,000 budgeted for the police department and $200,000 budgeted for the fire department. However, the fire department's budget was contingent on a potential grant funding that we may receive at the end of the year. So we're going to the background. I'll turn it over to Jason Leverton to discuss how these radios fit our needs.
Good afternoon. I want to add my word of thanks for convening the meeting on short notice, not only on a Friday, but on Good Friday. So we are appreciative of that. Again, as Molly stated, we were made aware of this offer just a couple of days ago. And just a little background as to how we became aware of this vendor, E.F. Johnson, and involved with them is this. I believe you're probably aware of the county radio project that has been approved and is underway, which is a $4 million project for the county to establish a digital radio network throughout the county. What the county did is hired a consultant, Pyramid Consulting from Indiana, to assist them in their endeavor to release an RFP for competitive bids. There were a number of bids that were received, both for the radio infrastructure and for the actual provision of portable and mobile radios. Jeff McMaster from the fire department and I were also part of that team. We were invited to participate on behalf of our departments in conjunction with the county project. E.F. Johnson became the selected bidder based on their expertise in the field and being the low bid and having specifications both on the infrastructure side and on the radio provision side of being more than adequate for our needs. As the agenda memo stated, the original price that was given to the county for a dual band radio, which again is everything in the VHF realm, the more traditional type radios, and then everything that's more modern with the digital side of radios, those would cost $4,250 a piece, which is still less than what we were currently paying. We have a recent quote from Motorola, who's been our vendor in recent years, a similar radio, in fact, a radio that's not even dual band, but is similar. It was actually over $5,000 a piece. For a single band radio, which would be suitable for just the police side needs, was $2,820. On Wednesday, we were made aware, as Molly said, from E.F. Johnson, that they're closing out their fiscal year. They had a large order of over 500 dual band radios that a customer unexpectedly canceled the order after it had already been manufactured. So they're willing to sell those radios to anyone within the county as part of their relationship with the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office with the radio project for just $1,000 a piece. There are some extra costs that would be associated with fully setting up the radios, the lapel microphones that we wear, an extra battery and a charger and so forth. That totals about $400 a radio. But that original price of $4,250 actually isn't including the accessories as well. So we do feel as though the discount was very significant, hence the request to hold this meeting because we are on the timeline of E.F. Johnson in order to get this order to them by tomorrow, the end of the year, which is the end of the month, which is the end of their fiscal year. And I think with that, that'll cover kind of the police side. Would be more than happy to clarify anything or answer any questions.
I'll ask you a question, Jason, and I'll ask Eric the same, or Jeff the same. So often we hear of a deeply discounted this, that, or whatever. We go to a store and something is very, very discounted, and we come to find out that while we buy something that is good, it becomes outmoded in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. Is there any fear on your part that anything like this with this particular model of radio would happen?
No, in fact, kind of the opposite. The specific radio that was originally ordered and then manufactured and is now available is actually a step above even what was originally quoted to the county. This one has a couple of other enhanced electronic features. It has a LED screen, for example, on the front of the unit, which these other ones wouldn't have even had. So they're actually the most current model that they had. And it's a good question because I understand that a lot of times these discounts and closeouts are on last year's model and so forth. But that is not the case with these. They're actually the latest model. And we don't have any hesitations as far as, their functionality. They were actually gracious enough to overnight us one so we could see it, which we did receive, and it is everything that it's purported to be and as advertised.
Good. Pat, Alderman Fagan.
Help me out here. Who's E.F. Johnson?
E.F. Johnson is the company that manufactures the radios and also designs and implements radio infrastructure. E.F. Johnson is a parent company. Names that you might recognize that they have bought out over the years is JVC and Kenwood. So this would be the former Kenwood radios. They market them as a Viking brand. So Viking is the brand of the radio. But again, I think in fact, I'm sure one of the reasons for the ability for this discount is we're buying directly from the manufacturer. There's no middleman involved with the way that they have their business model constructed.
And if we purchased it otherwise, we'd have to go through a middleman?
We would not have to. depending on which vendor we use. Right now, currently with Motorola, the police department does use a certified Motorola vendor, which typically has been Dixon Ottawa Communications. Now it's called the Barbeck Group, I believe. So E.F. Johnson is one vendor that they just deal directly with the customers, and they don't have the middleman, so to speak.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, is there a chance we could take a brief recess before the council takes action, please?
Do we need a motion?
No, you could just declare that if that's okay with you.
We will now take a short recess.
Okay.
Do you want us to meet somewhere else?
Yes, if you could set up.
The entire council?
No.
Okay.
Did you bring the dodgeball?
What?
Did you bring the dodgeball
The dodgeball.
for a reason?
We call it bombardment where I'm from.
At church, we play gaga ball. So it's like we have like 3 or 4 balls. And you start with your hand. And then you have to hit the ball with your hand. You can't pick it up and throw it. It's just hitting. You can only get the other person out if it hits them from the knee down.
Yeah.
So it's like running around and hit the ball. There's a whole center. You hit it off the wall. You can't hit a ball twice.
Catholic, we have games like that, but it's the waist down. It's the priest that gets slap the ball. You're not out, you're in at that point.
It was not.
Thanks, Lynn.
I now call this meeting back to order after that short recess. Jeff, did you want to say something on behalf of the fire department or not? Okay.
And Mayor, I just had
Oh, yeah.
one thing to add, if I could, please. One thing I didn't mention was the need. On the police department, we went to a digital radio system about a little over 10 years ago. Most of our radios that the officers carry are from that original purchase. Many of them are reaching the end of their useful life. In fact, we've learned from Motorola that probably as early as next year, they're also no longer going to support the ongoing maintenance with those for the electronic programming. So at some point, in the near future, we would have been coming and asking for radios in some form or another. This, of course, represents a good opportunity for the amount of $100,000 with most of the accessories that we would need. It gives us the ability to buy 72 of these dual band radios for $100,000. With the original pricing, even through the county's bulk rate, would have only given us 35 of the single band radios. So.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A little bit about the fire department's background. Fire departments in DeKalb and in DeKalb County are all VHF, which means we're on a very basic system that's been around for about 30 years. We have not dove into the digital realm or the P25 realm. That is why we were budgeted $200,000, because this is our first jump into the digital world. So with that, in order to augment the price, because both us and all the remaining county fire departments would have to buy all brand-new equipment, we actually, the DeKalb Fire Department, hosted an AFG grant, which is the Assistance Firefighter Grant. That is through FEMA under the umbrella of the U.S. Fire Administration. So we applied for this grant. It was about $1.5 million to get 10 of the 14 fire departments, including us, Sycamore and others, on this digital platform. At this time, they have not, it is a competitive bid, which fire departments, pretty much all fire departments throughout the country apply for various critical equipment. That's what it's open for. So whether it's protective equipment, communications, fire apparatus and such, we have benefited from winning competitive bids through the AFG, such as our Rescue One and our mobile training tower, which was our most recent award. So we feel very strongly about the grant that we submitted. It is excellent. However, it is a competitive bid with the remaining fire departments throughout the United States, so you just don't know if you're going to win or not. Middle of April is when the bids will start being awarded, and it's usually a 6-month process through various cycles until they award out all the money that the federal government put aside for this grant. So at this time, like I said, we'll be anxiously waiting. We are in need of 70 radios for our fire department to make sure that the firefighters are equipped and that we have enough radios for disasters when it happens. With that, with the price that we're getting, if we win the AFG grant, we will only be able to get 56 radios. And that's because they base their, what they award you on riding positions. That's how many people fit in a fire apparatus. However, and so that means that even if we win the AFG, there still will be a need to purchase radios at a full price. Not to mention, if we win the AFG, we still have to match the 10% that the federal government requires. With a purchase tonight, we would be able to not only purchase these radios at a discounted price, but however, we would be able to get all 70 radios up front, so we know that we will have all the radios that we need to properly function on the fire department.
Any questions of Jeff? Alderman Jacobson.
I did talk to Eric, obviously, before the meeting, and I may put you on the spot a little bit. My question to Eric was, in making this purchase now, do we take ourselves out of the running for the grant? Do we disqualify ourselves for the grant? And he made very clear to tell me that that was not the case, obviously, in backing out some of the other requests for some of the mobile radios and other things. Those would still be eligible for the grant?
That is correct.
Were we to receive it, correct?
That is correct. So if we purchase the radios tonight, that is $70,000 that would not be eligible from the grant if we won it. However, the spare batteries, the microphones, the mobile radios, which mobile radios are the radios that are in the fire apparatus. And then what we're talking about tonight are the portable radios. That's what the firefighters actually carry. So we would still be eligible for the mobile radios, microphones, chargers, spare batteries, but we would not be eligible for the money for the actual radio itself.
Excellent question, Dave. Yes, Alderman Noriko.
So, you indicated that we had last received funds from this kind of grant fairly recently?
Yes, in 2014, we won
Okay.
$250,000 for a mobile training tower.
Okay.
Because, to provide a facility for firefighter training.
Does the federal government kind of look at how recently you received funds previously, or is it just, what your need is, or?
It's based on every year they put out a priority, and communications is always a priority for the federal government. So we feel that with our that communications is a priority, and with our strong grant that we are in the running very much so. But we do fit the parameters to this year to win potentially win a grant.
So even though we had gotten a significant amount 4 years ago, there's still the possibility of getting money and the funds, even though they wouldn't be used for at least a piece of what you had originally thought, that there's still very much a need for those dollars that you could potentially get from the grant.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we are very much in the running.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Verbeek?
Thank you. If we were unsuccessful with the grant, do you have money in your budget to make up for that?
Well, we do have initially budgeted $200,000. Currently, if you can imagine, we're $70,000, $1,000 per unit, 70 radios, is going to go a lot farther. If we forego this time, the fire department, if we forego tonight, we're looking at an additional $127,000 that we're going to have to pay if we buy these radios, let's say in 6 or 9 months. Either way, the fire department needs the radios so we can get onto the digital. It's just a matter if we want to pay $1,000 per radio or roughly $2,800 per radio.
Any other questions of Jeff? Thank you. Lynn, did you want to speak to this item? Okay, this is public participation. I want to do this before we get to the point where we would be asked to vote. Lynn?
Thank you. Good evening, Council and Mayor.
Good evening.
Congratulations on this week. You made some big changes. I'm absolutely sure that they are not easy things that you are doing right now. I am concerned about this item. I'm concerned about the rush. It seems familiar. Always a rush. Not time for anyone on the council, if they wanted to look into things themselves, and going over budget at a time when we have an interim city manager. So I wanted to come here and tell you, I have no idea if this is a good deal or not, or something that you should jump at or give a part of your Good Friday for. I don't know. I hope you do. If you don't, I want to talk to you about what happened the last time we had a city manager leave and an interim in. And of course, even under the best of circumstances, you have maybe someone who doesn't have as much investment or stake, or someone who's less experienced. I don't know why, but I do know that when Mark Bernanke left in 2013, he left, I believe, either at the end of FY13 or the beginning of FY14. And in FY14, after the audits were done, we ended up over budget by $347,773 over budget for FY14. And a lot of that came about with deals that look quite similar to this. Hurry, 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 or you're going to lose out. We've got the money, let's do it now. There was a big push. I think there was, some sort of, I'm not even going to comment on the dynamic. I am going to say that this, I would urge caution, because there are things going on that you'll never know because you're not employees here. If you get what I'm saying. There are things that you need to understand, who you can trust and who you can't, who's really helping you and who are the opportunists. So anyway, if it were up to me, I would seriously consider not approving anything that's not in the budget for now. I would even look at the spending authority and perhaps make temporary adjustments to different spending authorities and so on. I do think that it's a time for some caution, and I'm really sorry to in any way suggest adding to your burden right now, but I think it's needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Early on, when I became your mayor, I would appear to be flustered. Tonight, I am flustered and flabbergasted. And I'd like to ask City Attorney Dean Frieders to review what I learned during recess. Dean?
Thank you, Mayor. As was indicated, this was an item that came to staff on a very short time frame, and we were provided a indication that if we did not respond within that time frame, the opportunity that's presented would not be available. And so staff undertook every effort to convene a special meeting of the City Council within that time frame in order to comply with the requirements that were being placed upon us by the vendor. In the course of that process, the 48-hour window for notification of a special meeting was identified, and the city made every effort to comply with that and did comply with that. The concern that we have with regard to tonight's meeting, however, is the Open Meetings Act indicates that a special meeting cannot be conducted, or that the city cannot take action to approve an item on a state-recognized holiday. And state-recognized holidays are defined by the Bank and Promissory Note Act, which would include the Friday preceding Easter. So for that reason, while we're doing everything possible to demonstrate good faith with the vendor and seeking an extension, and while we do ultimately believe that this transaction would be beneficial for the city, it is our recommendation to not actually approve the action at tonight's meeting. We are still working in earnest with the vendor to demonstrate that we're doing everything possible to comply with their requirements and dictates, but we would not recommend action at this time.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting of the City Council.
So moved.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.